And so I am indeed honored and thrilled to have you here with us today. Can you talk a little bit about what art meant to you in prison?
Coming from a prison where the suicide rate was 8 times higher than any other facility in the nation and 5 times higher than any other facility in California, and coming from someone who found her monkey hanging at 3 o'clock in the morning, it gave me an area to release and to go to that kept me away from the cycle that was in the prison. It was a space where I was allowed to go and find solitude and find peace and find relaxation, and you could draw and you could paint or you could glue or you could do whatever it was that we did that day, and it could remove you from the realities of what prison is. You know, I not only did your art class, but yesterday the Actors Game was here. I also did the Actors Game with them, and I sang in the lead group. Anything that I did that healed me all had to do with the arts. And so my goal is to make mandatory arts in the prison system so that people can actually get away. Since being out, a month after I was out, I applied for a UCLA fellowship, Beyond the Bars. I'm now a Beyond the Bar fellow. I just spoke at UCLA this morning. Come in and offer a broken community, because that's exactly what we are, it's a broken community. People are being imprisoned for being traumatized. And I guess my question is, why have we not used arts to heal people before? You know, arts gives us the opportunity to go back to our childhood that we may or may not ever have had. And it gives us the opportunity to release and play and draw and go to places that we've never been to. With me, I believe that if they really were the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, I believe that they would seek avenues to try to rehabilitate us. And for me, I believe that we should work 32 hours a week and there should be mandatory 8 hours instead of 40 hours a week to help us to find our way out of the muck that got us there in the first place.
It's so powerful to hear you speak about your experience, because even though, does that work?
Yeah.
It works? Okay. Because even though, you know, we met there, I didn't always know what it was like for you when you leave our art space. So it's really powerful and moving to hear that. So thank you for sharing. We're going to hear more a little later about some of her plans, what she hopes to do now that she is out. Oh, another friend from our program who's recently joining us about hearing the word, so that's exciting. So on that note, Fabian, can you also talk a little bit about your personal experience with art as a healing process?
I believe that art is a language, and it's a universal language that needs to be reclaimed. Art is a language that allows homeboys and homegirls, the toughest from the toughest, to get into a vulnerable state that then. And art doesn't speak in a sense, so it does not judge how vulnerable the art allows them to get. But most importantly, what it does, it prompts up conversation and dialogue, where it allows these inmates to go back to their childhood, to reclaim what it is that was lost due to the impact of trauma. And yet we can paint about it, draw about it, and then we can talk about it, right? And so I think for me, art is a healing. It's a healing tool. It's another tool that can be utilized for any and recovery as well. So I think that's pretty much what I have within the arts and the healings. But it's obvious, you know, these are traditional aspects of art that have been utilized from our ancestors in ancient times. But yet society, some way, somehow, is just turning the page and recognizing how important the arts are for one's personal healing.
Tell us a little bit about how do you see art as a tool for positive change in the classes that you facilitate with CVA?
and heal people differently. I remember walking in, obviously scared. Never been inside a prison in my life, and here I'm walking in, and I remember telling my class that this was the first time I was ever teaching, ever. And I had told them to definitely have patience with me. And I was really nervous, and I even told them, I was really kind of scared because I didn't want to give the wrong advice or do something wrong. And my students had told me, they're like, don't worry, we're trying too. So it was kind of like this moment that we had that, we had each other's backs, and we were going to continue to work together and, kind of learn from one another. And one of my students, definitely, he kind of got the better hold of me, and he was like, I want you to know I've never touched markers, colored pencils, or anything like that before in my life. And he was, I know it's probably really simple for you to know what, primary colors are, red, yellow, and blue. He's like, but I learned something today. And he goes, and that's something I'm always gonna take with me. And he goes, and I'm always gonna think about those 3 colors together. And he's like, and try to make anything else with those. So I definitely see a positive change, more so with their attitudes, their enjoyment of doing something, whether it's just mixing colors, drawing shapes, but just them being able to kind of express themselves in a place that they don't have that opportunity to. So I see it across the boards, at all the different sites that I work at, and I definitely enjoy it. And I think my enjoyment and encouragement and enthusiasm definitely shines on them, because then they want to return it to me as well and just show how much that they've learned with me. So I appreciate that.
So I really love the different views on the art side that we're getting from this. Something that Christina said reminded me that not only the process of transforming and processing emotions that we get through art, but also that ability to create something and to learn that we have the capacity to create and to make change. So maybe learning the primary colors that can make all the other colors, which is an exciting thing to learn for anyone who's into art. You're like, wow, that's so cool. But on top of that, with that coming in life, and how that can transfer to life, like, oh, I can take these elemental things and I can create the life that I want, and I can create the self that I want. And I think even if that's not the first thing somebody takes away, ultimately it's where a lot of, I know I came to, and I know a lot of our participants do, so I don't think it's specific to being incarcerated, but it's certainly an intense situation where that can be really valuable. So Phung has been involved with us in many ways, as a volunteer, as a donor, as a co-facilitator with me this summer on this incredible project that we did at 2 prisons in Chino with the men and the women. You see some images from it, and then all of these images were taken by Peter Mertz, who you all are familiar with from meeting earlier, and a friend and collaborator, as well as Ashley Woods, who's here with me as well. Maybe stand up to work with. And Ashley, we were so grateful that Peter provided mentorship to Ashley as she's learning her art and corrections process. So that was really cool other collaboration that we had. So with Phung, what inspired you, and what drew you in, and what continues to inspire you? Because I know you're, like all of us, so busy. Like, what is it about this work?
Well, I can never say no to Annie. That's number 1. But Annie and I met 12 years ago because we noticed in the public school system in LA, there's not enough art programs, and it became more of a class divide where people with money had access to art and art programs, and those who didn't. So Annie and I wanted to start a nonprofit art school to give art programs in the public educational system to those who otherwise wouldn't have access to art. And then that fell through, we got so busy, and then she got this position at Cal State San Bernardino, and you started a program to give art to at-risk youth, to senior centers, all these, underrepresented people who needed it in their lives to empower themselves. And I was so inspired by that, and I feel like we have that in common. We don't want just art hanging in the walls of museums and galleries, but feeling like the true power of what art can do for people, And I share that similar experience with Fabian, Wendy about like art healing trauma, your experience of trauma. And you know, I'm a refugee, and my parents experienced surviving genocide and war, but couldn't talk to me about it, you know? And so art was a way of dealing and coping with that and making yourself visible. So to see that in what you do, and when we visited the sites, and to see the participants smile, have light, feeling human, being called by their name as opposed to a number, like that's what it's about, you know?
So powerful to hear each of you all discuss from your own point of view and get at that part of why art is so meaningful. So our series was addressing a broad issue of art and restorative justice, and I've been talking with people about that since we kind of got this going. And one of the things that we've kind of came upon is art is, at least in our program, more like planting seeds for that to happen. We don't do specific like victim awareness work or anything like that. But I know that at different levels some of our panelists have. So we're going to hone in a little bit on art and restorative justice. And I'm going to start with Fabian to address it in any way that you'd like to. But also if you could talk a little bit about your work in community murals and how that process promotes healing.
I think for me, I think it's important. You know what I mean? I've been a person who is a self-taught artist with no formal education, in the sense that art has been able to give me a creative pathway and an opportunity to reclaim and exhibit my strengths, skills, and assets, and my own personal experience. That also brings upon change, that inspires and motivates those who have been impacted by gangs, violence, drugs, and all those traumas that exist within our communities. So I think that if we can emphasize and expand on what has taken place in my life by giving opportunity, creative pathways that also give stability for homies who have been incarcerated, or who are always demonized or outcast by society with a lack of belief that they too can be part of the solution. I think art has given me that platform. And so my job, I take this personal. My job as an artist, my responsibility is to continue to create this creative pathways. So when these juveniles come home from juvenile hall or camp, there's something already in play. It's a community effort. They always tend to blame mom and dad for the mishaps of the child. But the reality is the circumstances and the lack of opportunities where we come from is what influences some of the decisions we make. So, if it's a community effort, then it is important that we call to action high-end institutions that are going to help us to meet the end result. And that is my personal vendetta and my own personal mission, to be able to stabilize and create these opportunities that have been given to me, that have helped me elevate, that have helped me break the cycles and the confinements that exist within my community. So why not recreate them, right? So if I have every capacity or opportunity to do so, then I must. I think that we can beautify and muralize the whole city of Los Angeles. That's a dream come true. And it's important. And I think murals speak on many levels, and they can impact and touch lives in a subtle way that you might not even know. They did mine. So that's what murals, how they speak to me.
Priority in your life and the various places that you work to integrate your art in your life to make a difference. And I think that change does happen individually and communally, the way that Fabian so articulately just explained. And in addition, there are the institutional changes that we're all eventually hoping for. And I know Department of Corrections is trying to focus more on rehabilitation, has created funding for arts and corrections and other programs. And we're all hopeful that it will continue in that direction. And Wendy, since you got out, you've made it a priority to advocate for arts in prison. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what you're hoping for?
I currently work with the Actors Gate. I got out, I contacted them and said, what can I do? I became a teaching artist in a reentry program with them, and I also, and I was in their program while I was in prison. While I was in prison, I was also in the pilot program with UCLA, and I contacted them, and they said, come speak, you know, at our kickoff of this fellowship, and I saw this thing that said apply here, and I applied, and, you know, I have a gift. We all have a gift. We have been bestowed a gift, every single one of us. And for me, my gift is my voice. I sing, I write, I talk, and I can speak well in front of people. And if I can reach out my hand to the person who is still suffering and give them what someone gave to me, then the chain is still continued, right? And that's a cycle that we want to continue. That's not one of those cycles that we want to break. Unfortunately, those are the cycles that get broken because the first thing that they cut is funding. And the first thing that they take away is from welfare, from all these programs, from the people that really need it. They have realized that arts is working. They started giving us money back. It started at $2 million, you know, then it's going to $4 million, and it's going to $6 million, and I think it's by 2018 they plan on giving us $8 million. My question is, where's the budget? Because, okay, you're giving us this money, I really want to see where it's going. And I mean that, because if you have $8 million, you can give us all a day off and put some arts in our life, right? So, for me, I would be doing an injustice and a disservice to everyone around me, to the people that I put my hand out to, if I didn't come out and talk to every single person that I'm able to. I saw Annie at the Arts and Corrections Conference. I had only been out like 45 days, and I spoke to the department, the secretary, Scott Kernan. I spoke to him there publicly, and I said, this is my goal. And since then, I've been in close contact with Sacramento, and my goal is to go talk in Sacramento. And the way that things keep playing out, that looks like that's going to happen sooner than I thought. But that's because that's my gift. His gift may be drawing portraits. His gift may be doing these murals. All of us have a gift that can put back into this world, every single one of us. And if you aren't using it, then you are doing not only an injustice to yourself, but an injustice to everyone else around you.
Thank you so much. It's so powerful. And she told me, so just so if everyone is not aware, so Arts and Corrections is an initiative of California Arts Council and California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We're a part of it. We just recently signed a 3-year contract, so we'll be working with them for the next 3 years in up to 12 prisons. Fabian is a teaching artist in it, and as well, you are as well, right? So we're excited that it is growing and evolving, and that's the reference of the millions that she was referring to. And in addition to that, I love your idea that inside the incarcerated folks have to, her vision, as she said it to me, was like work, 32 hours, and then have 8 hours of arts, mandatory arts. So amazing. I really love that idea. So I just wanted to give a shout out for that idea. So Phung, as a community college professor, how do you see the role of public education in restorative justice and mass incarceration?
I feel like the community college is a pathway and a connection with those who've been incarcerated. And I really strongly believe in offering college courses in prisons. And that, you know, being a community college professor, we get every kind of student. That's why I love teaching at community college. Old, young, wealthy, poor, everything. And I think, like, you know, we as a community, I think, Wendy, you touched on that. Everybody has value, inside or outside. Everybody has value, and I think we need to recognize that. And that as a community, we are responsible for those who are incarcerated because we let them down in the first place. So there's a dialogue that needs to happen there. There's no separation. So as a community, we need to work together, and I feel like the community college is definitely a place for that, for re-entry. You know, education is very important to everybody. Everybody should have education. And at community colleges, we have resources. You know, that's the other thing. You know, community colleges, we have all kinds of resources for mothers, if you have a disability, anything. On top of that, we don't deny people, Community college is about democratizing higher education. It's giving college to anybody who wants it. And so connecting that with people who have been incarcerated and putting it into the prison system, I think it's an important move that we need to make.
So I have one more question for Christina, and then I also want to hear thoughts on these topics or questions from you all as well for the panelists. So Christina, first of all, I don't know if you're aware, but one of our former participants in the facilitator training is here. Do you know that? Can we recognize our friend Rubble? Yay! No, he doesn't. Just his little hands up. Rubble's here with us. They haven't seen since he was in and we were teaching inside. So we're so excited to see you here and to see you out and making a difference. And he's a mentor and a teacher for kids, and it's amazing. So we're so excited to see you here. And Christina, can you share a story from, whichever class, the facilitator training we did recently or any of the classes that you teach? You've been teaching with us a couple years now, and that's not a couple hours a week. That's like we teach from 8 to 4. So we have all-day classes inside the prisons, multiple classes, about 6 to 8 at a time. And so she's a lead of those, as well as teaches printmaking and helps me on the facilitator training. So can you share a little bit about just a story from one of your classes that shows the integration of art and restorative justice, or shows meaning in some way? Sorry, Rubble, didn't mean to.
So a little background about myself is I've been working with Annie for the past 3 years. So there's so many stories to choose from, and I know I have plenty. So I'm just trying to think of a good one, or one that's like really resonating with me right now. Oh my God, so many. I know, right? Okay. No pressure. I know, no pressure at all, everybody. Okay. There's one specific person that I work with at CIM, and I teach printmaking. I love printmaking, so I feel like that's like a lost art that a lot of people really don't know too much about. For example, it's like the emblems that are on your shirt, silk screening. That's typically the most known one. I had a gentleman in one of my classes, had never done art whatsoever in his whole entire life. And he would come in, and my class was the only one that was still open left, and he came in, and he had told me, well, what is this? So I'm like explaining, you can refer to it as stamps, or possibly, silk screening if, you have a better understanding of it. And he goes, okay, I'm gonna sit in. So the first 3 days of our class, he is struggling. He goes, I can't think of ideas, I can't, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I sat with him, and I really wanted to talk as to what was going on. And he's like, I just have a lot of things in my head right now, and I just can't think of anything else besides what's happening outside of here. So I go, okay, just take a minute, collect your thoughts, and I'll leave you alone for a second. So I went around, checked on all my other students, and I came back. And he's sitting there with like this huge smile, and I'm like, okay, what did you find? What are you thinking about? He goes, I love baseball. And I go, okay, great. Now we're getting somewhere. He goes, but I like the San Padres. And he tells me, and I'm like, okay, let's do it then. So he has this character drawn out, and he's like, I'm gonna do it. He goes, I'm gonna do this. He goes, I've never worked so hard at anything, but I'm gonna work really hard at this. So I go, okay, let me help you out. So the next 2 days, we're struggling to do this, me and him together, because I'm trying to let him do it. I don't want to do everything for him. So, it was kind of a give and take. And the last day before we got the print ready so we can finish it, he's like having such a bad day, and he's like, man, I don't think it's gonna come out. And he was just so terrified of putting it finally on paper. After all this hard work, this thinking process, he finally is ready to do it. And he was just so terrified. Wow, with the help of all of our students also in the class, because they knew how hard he had worked on this one image the whole entire 10 weeks, everybody got together and helped him do this print, but they let him do it. So they were telling him like, you got this, don't worry, Lee, you got this, like, you're gonna do this. You know, and everybody's like, you know, encouraging him and like, you know, cheering him on, and he was like, no, well, what if I fail? And everybody's like, well, we're all right here, and I guess we all failed at one point or another. He goes, so it's okay, like, you know, the worst is behind us. So he finally did it, and in this process, you lift up the paper. So when he lifted up the paper, I swear that was probably like the biggest smile I have ever seen on him. And he was running around pretty much inside of our gym with all of our classes, and he probably showed all the men that were working in there, like, look what I did today. I finished this, I completed this. And that's the only print he did the whole entire time. But he goes, I'm gonna send this to my son that I haven't talked to in a really long time. He's like, because I want him to know that I'm really trying to do anything and everything I have never done. So just the thought of him really trying and putting everything together, and with the help of our class, and you know, he finished it, and just like the point of him even getting there was amazing. And now he was also in the NEA that we did together, and he identifies himself as a printmaker now. And he said that he's never drawn, colored, did cards for anybody or anything like that, but now he identifies himself as an artist. And he says that he feels that he has a voice now, and he can express what he feels and what he likes now. And you know, and I'm just so thankful that he led us into, you know, that little portion. And you know, I know he struggled, you know, somewhat, but just the thought of him overcoming that, and you know, everybody seeing it, and him now identifying himself as an artist, I feel is like the biggest, you know, accomplishment for himself. And I'm just like so thankful that he let us have that opportunity and walk with him. So I guess that would be my story.
Time, if anyone has questions, is there any questions from our audience, or does anyone here want to add anything? Oh, we have a question. What is it?
Is there already any kind of 4-credit prison education in any of the prisons?
Okay. Is there any 4-credit education in any of the prisons?
College level courses 4 credit? And what's the status of that coming about? And what are the efforts that are in place for that?
So yes, there definitely is. There previously to a date that I don't have at the tip of my fingertips, but the people who are incarcerated could receive Pell Grants, but then that was cut. But then President Obama initiated a reenactment of that Pell Grant, and several universities did apply and are part of that, and I know Cal State LA is one of them. And so that's all across the nation, but it's a very small pilot. So there's that, there's multiple universities involved. There's also all the community colleges. If individual, it depends, it's not for everyone because they do have to have citizenship status, but if they do, they could take it essentially for free. So like Wendy and I were talking yesterday, like I know and you know as well, several people who have multiple AA degrees, like 6 or 7, because that's what they can get. So there is a movement and interest in trying to move towards a BA, and I know I've been working on it with some of my team for the past couple of years, and we're hoping to be able to do something soon. Anyone want to add to that, or other questions?
We met at UCLA with Brant Choate, who has just been appointed to the Director of Education for CCR. We met with him last week, and his desire and his goal is to actually put 1 bachelor's degree in, so that no matter where somebody is, if they get transferred to another facility, they will be able to pick up that same. So they're working on it, but this guy is business. This guy's really, he means what he says and he says what he does. And he used to be over LA County jail system and in the LA County education. So I really believe that that's going to happen. It will take some time because they have to get all of the universities that are going to play a part in that on the same board, and they have to decide what BA they're going to offer. They want to offer 1. I believe that they should offer 2. I believe there should be an arts and a science, because not everybody is built the same, right? But it just makes that much more work. So it is on the table. They are discussing it, and other than that, it's just associate's degrees, unless you're paying for your own education through mail, which is very costly.
I don't know much about, what goes on in the prisons or what have you with that, but I'm still waiting for the day that they begin to accredit. I said, I'm still waiting for the day that they begin to accredit and credentialize our own personal life experience. We already come with lots of skills and assets and learning experience that are validated only when someone comes to explore our life experience to write a thesis, then they come, and then they're giving credits in order to graduate UCLA, USC. But yet, it's hard for me to be elevated to a firm position because I don't have that. I don't have the so-called education stating that I am a social worker when I've been social working all my life due to my own personal life experience. So for me, I would like to call to action the institutions because they need me as much as I need them. And that's the only way that we're gonna start to, if we call it equity, that's the way we're gonna start to equalize and bring forth experience versus professionalism, you know, and not to be prompted when to speak versus I should already be on that table. And I think I get it. I know we all work hard, go to school, get your education. I get that. I'm not minimizing that. But I think for me, a person who comes from certain life experiences and circumstances, for me to play back, you know, they say it's never too late, but when you have 5 children to try and go get a 4-year college formal education, I might as well just leave that failure for my children to progress. But why not yet have I been accredited my own personal life experiences? You get me? And so I think that's something that needs to be revisited because it just hurts me sometimes not to, I'm not trying to, there's no Sunday, I might get all that. But it's a trip how people come, they do interviews, they get to know me, they get to understand my life and how I dealt with my life, how I transformed my life. They write a thesis and yet I'm still undermined. So when do we credit, let's talk about credentials for life experience to put me in a place where I too can be that professional person.
I know Fabian needs an honorary doctorate. They should just give it to him. They make that for, you know, it's there already, brother, you know, like you need to get it already. But this is where I think community colleges can help, and it's never too late, you know? Like, that's why we serve students who have 5 children and who are 65 years old or who's on welfare, single mom, whatever it is, you know, that's where community colleges need to step in to accommodate anybody in any life situation, any skill level, any barrier to get there, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to LACC.
So I love that. I love that idea. I agree with Phung. So about, yeah, we're ready. I'm not in charge of honorary doctorates, but if I were. But I just want to point out one thing about that. Because when I first started this work, I would go to colleges and meetings with other universities and colleges interested in this idea. And they would always like, oh, but did they get credit? And it's like almost devalued everything that was happening, like the experience that Christina just described, and that like by hundreds, by probably thousands at this point of experiences that have happened because somehow they're not crediting that they're not valuable. And I was like, well, I don't know, do they want credit? So I went back and I talked to our participants, hey, you know, I know this is a big issue. Do you guys like this? Does this work? Do you guys want credit? Because we're very, like, we try to work with who's there. And people, I tell you what, in about 80 men that I did speak with at Gino, because that's the place I know the most and spoke with them the most, about 10 to 15 really wanted that. So that's great, we should do that for those 10 to 15, and I am trying, and I have been trying for the past couple of years. But what about art as a rehabilitative process, art as a life process, art as experience and transformation? Like, that's always been so valuable to me. I have degrees in art, but really it's just the process that's so valuable. So I just think that all of them are important, and we shouldn't like value one over another, that we should find what people need and want and then make that accessible. So, any other questions for our panel? Anyone else? Yes. Yes, we do. Men's and women's facilities, yes. There's only 2 women's prisons in California, though, right? 4?
Wow.
Harlan, CIW, and CSUSB.
Yeah, we're only our panel have anything that they would like to add? Oh yeah, we have one announcement. So I'm going to pass it to Wendy.
So when I was chosen into this fellowship, it's called the Beyond the Bars Fellowship, and we are building a conference that is happening October 13th, 14th, and 15th at UCLA. I have all the flyers. I left them in my car, but I'm going to go get them and bring them. But it's a free conference. The food is included. The theme is the end of mass incarceration. We will be talking about decriminalization. We'll talk about bail reform. We have several different panels going on that whole weekend. And also the UCLA Theater Company will be putting on What It Is, which is the script that the CIW pilot program, we revised that script and they actually put the show on, and now they're going to have it as part of our conference as well. But I'm going to go get the flyers and the stickers and bring them back. I left them in my car, but please, I encourage you all to register. If you go to justiceworkgroup.org, you can register for free. There's no cost. It's free food for the whole weekend. Sunday, we're having a resource fair. There'll be resources there for previously incarcerated people. There's going to be a whole bunch of people there. It's going to be a great time, and it starts on Friday. So please, we also have the box, which is a presentation put on about being in solitary confinement, which one of our panels will be about solitary confinement, women in prison, arts and corrections, Prop 57, bail reform, immigration. I think we have 12 different panels altogether. But please, I invite you to come. If you can get to UCLA and go, I'd love to have you.
Thank you. That's so exciting that there's so much. Oh, there's one more question.
What's the website again?
What?
JusticeWorkGroup.org.
Justice Work Group.
There.
Thank you. And thank you. I will be there too. And I'm working with Wendy. Invited me to help her, and together we're putting together one of 4 exhibitions of artwork there. So you'll see artwork from those taking part in our programs. And then we also have an exhibition at College of the Desert at the Marks Art Center right now through the end of October. That's amazing. It's 3 big rooms full of incredible art from men and women in the multiple different prisons where we have been teaching. So I hope you check it out. And I think our time is up. So